I'm ready.
Great.
Could I just ask, can you hear me?
Yes.
There's an air conditioning thing.
Fine. You're fine. Are we now live? I assume yes. Fine. Welcome to. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Amisha. Welcome to this evening's virtual Wormwood Scrubs Charitable Trust Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Sanderson and I chair the Trust Committee. Could I remind all participants of a few housekeeping points before we start, and that is please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking. Please wait until I call on you before speaking, and please can officers introduce themselves when they first address the committee. And in fact, I think if everyone could introduce themselves when they first address the committee, that would be helpful. Thank you. Item 1 for this evening is appointment of co-opted members. Does the committee approve the appointment of Stephen Whaley-Cohen and Faye Thomas as non-voting co-opted members?
Approved.
Approved by me, so approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Welcome. We're delighted to have you join us.
Thank you.
The excellent additions and repeat member of Wormwood Scrubs Charitable Trust. We're delighted to have both. Thank you. Lovely. Item 2, apologies for absence. Councillor Kwan, but I think that's it. And Councillor Stanton may have to leave early, but we will carry on regardless. So thank you very much for being here. Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? I don't think I do. Councillor Stanton?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Fine. Minutes of the previous meeting. Any matters, are they approved, and are there any matters arising? Stephen.
I do have some matters that I think are arising. About 3, apologise for that. First is the first item, the vehicle access route, and to ask if there's any progress on that or whether it's becoming to a future meeting. And in association with that, whether you've heard anything, anyone's heard anything from Secret Cinema, which I think is sort of not exactly related, but that follows naturally.
I have got a request to ask Osama to report back on depot usage and parking, so I'm going to add those in all at once. So, Osama, can I go to you for all of those, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is Osama Elamin. I am the manager to the Wormwood Scrubs Charitable Trust. So thank you, Sir Stephen, for your question. I'll start with the vehicle access route question first of all. So as explained in the March committee, we had received a feasibility report into creating that access route via the substation entrance. That would be the preferred entrance. And so we did generate some costs as well. Those costs were quite considerable. So depending on the type of surface that we would like to lay for that access route, it's sort of anywhere in the region between £120,000 and £160,000. We obviously think that's incredibly expensive. And also we have to think about the return on investment in generating that sort of access. So myself and other officers are looking at other cheaper options, which aren't based on the surface types that were suggested initially. We're thinking about other surface types which are a little bit more in keeping with the nature of the scrubs and a little bit more porous as well. So in considering all these elements, we are still working through another set of quotes, and so we anticipate that another recommendation will come to the committee in September.
Thank you.
So that's on the note of vehicle access. You're welcome. Also on the note of the depot, so as discussed offline with Sir Stephen, we at the time of requesting some more information, specifically a report on the percentages of usage for the depot. So we have 3 different lots around grounds maintenance they're across the borough. The depot is used for each 3 of those lots. So if lot 1 is parks and cemeteries and highways, lot 2 I believe is housing, and lot 3 is the one with scrubs. All of that gets processed at the depot on the scrubs. And so a report to kind of understand what percentage of the depot is used for each contract lot, and in the future, can we ascribe a valuation to each of those lots and perhaps charge back an amount based on the previous two lots that aren't concerning the scrubs. That is something that we're looking into. At the time of asking, it was a little bit premature because we were conducting some capital works in the depot, specifically to reconstruct the wall that was collapsed on the southern aspect, which divides the school and the depot. So now that's been complete. That was completed at a cost of about £23,000. That's been done. Basically, we kind of think that there are a number of different issues with the depot. And so we would like to kind of come up with that valuation, but we need to complete another set of works, essentially, and think about the orientation of the depot first before we start to think about how much to charge another kind of element of each lot that doesn't pull on the steps. So we're working on that, and we're hoping that probably in about winter time, we will come back to the committee with an update on that.
Thank you.
And there was a third question, third matter arising from the minutes from the previous meeting, and that is concerning a question that I think Councillor Stanton had requested a little bit more information on parking income. So I can share my screen. It might be a little bit easier to illustrate the figures that we were looking at. Just give me 2 ticks. Can we see that?
Nothing shown on my screen.
No. No.
Just that? Okay, give me 1 minute. Okay. Has that worked?
Yes.
That works.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So as you can see in this column here, this column refers to the total amount that we generate, including VAT. And this is for the financial year 2022-23, so the one just gone. And so you can see here that on weekdays, we tend to generate roughly 6 times the amount that we do on a weekend. And so that income level has recovered really well, actually, since 2021-22, where we sort of saw a bit of a drop off. And the previous year, 2019-2020, was almost half of that figure, and that was due to the COVID lockdown. So we're doing quite well on parking income, and this is obviously across the 2 locations that we have, Scrubs Lane and the Liverpool Christie site. The additional car park that we have is leased to Hammersmith Hospital Car Park, and that has a lease fee attached to it as well. So that is hopefully the response that you were looking for, Councillor Stanton.
I think so. I'm not going to delay us too much today. What I'd like to do is if you could possibly send that to me so I can have a look at it, and maybe that might come up with some more questions at the next meeting.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Are the minutes approved? Good.
Approved.
Right, manager's report. We are going to slightly restructure this so that the items with a decision go first. So I think we're going to item 3.
I think, Chair, apologies, Chair, that the first item 1 has an approval.
Okay, that's
if he's going to take. Yeah, okay.
Fine. So HS2 update on the SBS site. So Vicky, could I go to that for you, please?
Hello, yeah, my name is Vicky Awell and I'm the Wormwood Scrubs Development Manager. So for the update on HS2 and the SBS site, we had a meeting on the 25th of May, which was attended by council officers, members of the Friends Group, HS2 and BBVS, who are HS2's contractor on that project. And it was decided that the vegetation had reinstated to such an extent that the fence can now be removed. The fence is still on site at the moment, as we need to have a licence in place to grant BBVS access to the site to remove the fence. This can only be granted once we have agreed the method for removing the fence with BBVS. They will use the existing track to the north of the meadow and to the south of the SBS site, and the license will be granted for a period of between 4 and 6 weeks, which will allow for periods of wet weather when we won't allow them onto the site to use the vehicles because it will churn up the ground. Also, the UTX site boundary has been enlarged to include the entrance area of which was to the SBS site, which runs along Old Oak Common Lane. And this has involved the installation of some green mesh fencing, which also goes around the rest of the boundary of the UTX site.
So I think, Vicky, we want committee approval for the license.
Yeah, so we need to approve the license with legal so that BBVS can access the site.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this? Stephen and then Faye?
I just wondered when you hoped it might start the work.
Yeah, the earliest it will start is the 17th of July. And that's if the license is in place. So we're just waiting to confirm the information that we need from BBVS. And once we have all that, legal will draft the license, which shouldn't take very long. And hopefully if it's in place in time, they'll start on the 17th of July.
You said sorry.
Faye, as it's your first meeting, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hello, hi. I'm Faye Thomas, member of the Friends of Wormwood Scrubs. You said that they'd increased the size of the UTX area. Is that like a permanent change in the sort of designation of the land?
They've already got the land ready because it was part of what was the SBS site. So they've increased the boundary of it along Old Oak Common Lane. So it runs for another approximately, I don't know, I'd say about 15 to 20 meters along there, and it's a triangular site. So it's what was the entrance to the SBS site.
Oh, do you know why?
They've got a lot of services going into that site, so it will be probably they've increased the area to allow for that. There's a lot of kind of utilities to be moved into that area.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Fine. Any other questions on this particular bit? Fine. Are we happy to approve? Fine, thank you. Approved. I'm just going to double check the ordering that we're now doing. So we're doing items 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 11 first. So can I go to Osama for item 3, please, which is local nature reserve qualification update?
Me. I think it's me.
Oh, sorry, I've got Karen.
It's okay. So at a previous committee meeting in December last year, it was approved that the meadow area in the northwest corner of the Scrubs would be submitted for local nature reserve status. And as part of the submission, we've drafted a management plan and a fact sheet, which were circulated with the papers for this meeting. And if that management plan and the fact sheet are approved, then we will commence a month-long consultation on the proposal. And if we receive no objections to that proposal, then we will go ahead and forward the application to Natural England for their consideration. So we're asking the Trust to approve the management plan and also to choose a name for the new LNR. And I think you've got the list was sent around as well, the list of names.
Thank you. So the names that we've got are Wormwood Scrubs Western Meadow, Wormwood Scrubs Western Meadow Nature Reserve, and Wormwood Scrubs Western Meadow Local Nature Reserve.
Yeah, or anything else that you might want to.
Anything else. Stephen?
I think we should keep the name. I mean, I'm very happy with the proposal. We should keep the name as simple and as brief as possible. I'd really like it just to be Wormwood Scrubs Meadow. There isn't an Eastern Meadow. But if we can't have that, then Western Meadow, rather than adding on nature reserve and local nature reserve. The existing local nature reserves don't have that in their description. So that's where I'm coming from. And I think that's what my colleagues from the Friends of Wormwood Scrubs Trust Board would agree with.
Fine, thank you. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
Well, can I just second what Stephen said? In order of preference, I think Wormwood Scrubs Western Meadow Local Nature Reserve is just far too long. If it doesn't need to say nature reserve, then just Wormwood Scrubs Western Meadow is fine.
I mean,
that's descriptive. I'm not sure about the eastern or the western.
Fine, thank you. Faye?
I mean, I would opt for the middle option, which is Wormwood Scrubs Wormwood Scrubs Nature Reserve. Not an option.
We've already got an existing nature reserve on the Scrubs, which basically is all the woodland areas to the perimeter of the site and also the central copse. And that area is just called Wormwood Scrubs.
Okay, cool. Well, I quite like the idea of having nature reserve in the name, but happy not massively attached.
I don't mind. I'm obviously devastated that you're not naming it after me, but that aside, I'm fine. I'm fairly relaxed about the name. So
sorry, if that's an option, Chair, may I propose that?
That's very kind, but thank you. I'm gunning for the paths to be named after me. Fine. Shall we go for, if there is already a Wormwood Scrubs Nature Reserve, shall we go for Wormwood Scrubs Meadow, just to keep it simpler? And then I think we can think about having some clearer signage illustrating the parts which are all nature reserve across the whole of the Scrubs as well. So it's part of the broader nature reserve map for the Scrubs. Is that all right with everyone? Perfect. Great. All right. Well, let's approve that then. Lovely. Thank you. So skipping on to number 4, safety improvement on the Scrubs. Am I going to you for this part?
That's coming to me. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you.
So I'll just share screen so that we can visualize the approval that we're seeking right now. Just bear with me while it loads. Okay, so as you can see from the map that is on screen at the moment, there are a number of different access routes which are highlighted on this map. So we have 3 access routes in particular that come off main roads. And we all know that vehicle incursions continue to be quite a big issue on the Scrubs. I think we'll speak later on about the issues that we face specifically. But we know that particularly incursions into the car park pose quite a high safety risk for a number of different reasons. And so this approval that we're seeking is to put £30,000 into a budget to improve some of the safety infrastructure across these 6 locations that are highlighted on the map. So I'll just go through each of the 6. So here at the junction of Wolfton Street, we are proposing this red dot that you see here is a new vehicle height restriction barrier. The yellow one is an existing yellow bar gate that we've already got. So we'd like to add a height restriction barrier and also have these green dots that you can see here 2 lockable bollards, removable bollards, which will be padlocked, and which can all of these can be accessible through by our grounds maintenance contractor, so it won't be any kind of hindrance to their vehicles getting in and out of the scrubs, quite crucially. So the idea is to create one height restriction barrier here with the 2 bollards, to repeat the same here as illustrated on the first option. The second access route, we've already got a yellow bar gate. We want to add a second height restriction barrier, put 3 bollards there as well. We'd like to place 3 bollards at Artillery Lane. We also have a height restriction barrier here, and that blocks off the access to the Linford Christie Stadium car park. And then we also have a vehicle height restriction barrier that we'd like to place here. So this is to block off the entrance for the staff car park at the Hammersmith Hospital car park. A lot of the traveller incursions that we tend to see come through this access route. So it's really important that we manage to limit that access as much as we can, while not affecting staff or patients who are seeking to use the car park when they need to. And the 5th element of this approval is that we'd like to reinforce the wire mesh fencing that runs across this route. So if you like this red line here, that dissects the Linford Christie Stadium to the left, that car park, and the Hammersmith Hospital car park, which is leased to the hospital. So we'd like to reinforce that fencing to make sure that no one can just cut through and just drive through that fencing. That requires also reinforcing the steel girders that sit all the way across the boundary of this red line. And also we would like to put another vehicle height restriction barrier at the where the Linford Christie Stadium car park ends, where we already have the yellow bar gate, and we'd also like to complement that with 2 lockable bollards as well with the welded locks to them too, so that the Let have access to those. All in all, roughly comes to a cost of about £30,000. And I should say that this will be complementary to the traffic management system, which we have commissioned, and I'm about to give an update on that later on in the manager's report. But that is quickly becoming operational, and so we'll be able to have that kind of blocked off route as well coming off Scrubs Lane.
Thank you very much, Osama. Councillor Stanton.
Yeah, thank you, Osama. That all sounds excellent. I do have one question though about the bollards and the locks, which is that presumably they would need to be removed if the emergency services needed to gain access. And if so, how quickly can they be removed? It's all very well maintenance people turning up with a key to open the bollard, but if an ambulance has to sort of get to the middle of the scrubs in a hurry, would they still be able to do that? Or this prevent that sort of speedy response?
Yeah, so with our booking system, we can have a view over what the likelihood is of a risk of someone needing to have emergency access. So say if we know that we have a football tournament happening on the scrubs, like we had last week, so Tackle Africa was on the scrubs, we would ensure that we would have at least one access route which would have the bollards put down, so that we know if a St John's ambulance needs to come on, that they wouldn't be hindered from accessing in any way. Obviously, it's a massive expanse of land anyway, so the access route is it's quite, you can get on if you need to, so to speak. So Scrubs Lane is always an option, and through the car park is always an option. But we will be very aware of the fact that any of the locks that are locked at any point in time, the Let need to have access to them, as well as emergency services as and when they need to come onto the scrubs, and we try to preempt that essentially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Faye?
Yeah, just echoing what Councillor Sanderson said. Would the height restrictions prevent fire engines from being able to get into the scrubs, and would they be removable if there was an incident on the middle of the scrubs that needed access?
Yeah, that's right. So I think actually was in a conversation, WhatsApp conversation with yourself and a few scrubs users about an unauthorised music event that took place in the Central Cops, which was using some electrical equipment. So given that kind of example, if something were to set on light, a fire engine would need to be able to get onto the scrubs. And so we've ensured that the quotes that we've generated are all for height restriction barriers where you can take the top off. So if a fire engine needs to get through, essentially you can remove the top of the restriction and they'll be able to get in straight away. They're not restricted by width either.
How would that stop unauthorized users removing the top as well?
So they're locked with a special key. So you need access to that key in order to be able to take them off. And so those keys are, without revealing too much, because obviously this is going to be live streamed. That key is congruent with the systems that emergency services use. So it's something that you don't necessarily need to request it from us necessarily in order to be able to get that access.
Thank you. Raoul.
Yes, hello, sorry. I had a question for the entrance from Scrubs Lane. I know they had those bollards installed some time ago. There are quite a bit of vehicles that come in through that side to Linford Christie, including double-decker coach buses, and they do come in at a quite rapid speed when that turning point curves around the pony stables. Is there anything to put up preventive measures for those vehicles coming in?
That's a really good point, actually, Raoul. That's a great point. So we have the traffic management system, which we're trying to get the power supply connected to at the moment. So that's the main method of blocking off or managing access, if you will, on Woodman's Mews. You're going to need a fob if we know that you're a coach company and you're accessing the Linford Christie Stadium. You'll have to ring an intercom, and someone will have to come out with a fob, or you'll have to have a fob yourself in order to get that access. In order to manage their access, I know that some of these particular coach companies tend to fire all the way around the corner, and that's a massive risk to the user of the Scrubs. I've actually spoken to the schools and the coach companies individually to say that needs to stop. And we're hoping that the traffic management system is going to mitigate that anyway. We've also requested that they just park up on Woodman's Mews rather than bending all the way around to the entrance of the Linford Christie Stadium, because it's a very, very narrow route anyway, and we don't need to have that risk. So we're hoping that the management system and them just parking up on Woodman's Mews will mitigate that risk.
Perfect. Yeah, I've been down that little bend and almost been clipped a few times by double-decker buses coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rob, do you just want to say who you are as well?
Yes, I'm Officer Roislas. I'm one of the ward officers for College Oak Park. I do spend a lot of my time in that park. So I do see a lot of the trustees there, and with the residents. We're now introducing the PSPO for professional dog walkers, which will be in force there later this month.
Great, thank you. Ahmad?
Good evening, everyone. It's Ahmad. I'm one of the law enforcement senior officer for the north of the borough. Osama, it's a really good. I know we discussed when we met some time ago at Hammersmith Hospital about the locks and barrier restrictions and a few other preventative measures. Just one question here. When the sports bookings are on and we see some of the cars actually driven on the green, not that far inside, it's just to facilitate loading and unloading. I think that should be coming from the Linford Christie manager. That the car shouldn't be going there on the green. We engaged with them and they said they've been allowed to go on the green to load and unload. I'm not sure how we're gonna go on this one further when the barriers will be up. So that will be minimized, and how they will be facilitating their loading and unloading when the sports booking will be going on the green. Wormwood Scrubs. Thank you.
That's a really, really good point, Ahmed. Yeah, very important to manage any risks as and when we know that we have sports bookings that are using the Scrubs. So in line with the system that we're going to introduce for the traffic management system, as I mentioned before, the need of having a fob in order to get in will obviously alert the staff member who's going to be on site at the time, hopefully, depending on which day of the week it is and who's managing the site at the time. We'll make sure that whoever has access has a very strict set of instructions and limitations on how they can access the scrubs, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. We have, the coach companies is a good example. They've been doing it for years. They've been using that access route for years, more or less because, someone might have told them, they might have had a change of personnel and that message has gotten kind of lost. So now we just need to be very, very clear with anyone who's accessing the site that there are limitations to what you can do on site. Obviously, we have the park bylaws, which are very strict, but we could be clearer. We could have better signage about that. That's something that we're looking into as well. But that is something which I will liaise with Adam Shears, who's the facilities manager of the Linford Christie Stadium. I'll make sure that those instructions are very clear for anyone accessing the site. So thank you for that comment, Ahmed.
Thank you very much. Okay, good lot of questions there. Are we happy to approve? Councillor Stampton, are you still with us? Okay. Fine. All right. We might have to just pend approval on that, but thank you for talking us through it. Oh, he's just sent me a I don't know if we can. He's just sent me a message saying he approves. Can we do that, or does it need to be a written approval, Amrita?
We should be able to accept that.
Fine, thank you. Okay, great. Fine. He's going to try and rejoin. So can we go to number 2? Whilst we do that, which is a non-approval item. So that is an update on the HS2 AEM master plan.
Yeah. So we've just had confirmation from OPDC that we will need planning permission for all the work in the master plan. We had been hoping that perhaps we'd only need planning permission for the wetland area and the sustainable urban drainage system, but they want us to submit an application for all the works. Obviously, that is quite a bit of work and there's a lot of drawings and plans to put together, but we can work on those at the same time as we are doing the drawings for the tender for the procurement of the contractor. So we're going to work on those over the next few weeks with a view to submitting the planning application as soon as possible. Hopefully this won't hold up the programme too much and we can still go out to tender while the planning application is being considered. The tender documents are currently being prepared and I'm aiming hopefully to go out to tender in mid to late July. So I should be able to bring an updated programme to the next meeting. And we also need committee to note that the previously approved version of the master plan, which was version I, has now been amended to rotate the model aircraft runways. And so we're now on version J. So that's just to be noted.
Thank you, Vicky. Have you heard from OPDC? I did follow up with them and they said they're going to get in contact.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I did hear, I heard back from Laura yesterday.
Brilliant, good, thank you. Right, any questions on this? Are we happy to note? Good, I'm going to take vigorous nodding from Stephen as a good sign. Fine, whilst we wait for Councillor Stanton to try and rejoin us, let's go to number 5. Thank you for bearing with us whilst we move around. Number 5, Kensington Dragons pitch resurfacing extension project and update. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, so further to the committee meeting that we had in March, Kensington Dragons have had their amended plan approved. That has gained the planning permission that they were seeking. So in consultation with our sports booking team, we anticipate that the best time to undertake these works would be sort of approximately between November and March, November 23 to March 24, weather permitting. It will take roughly 6 months to undertake these works, and the Dragons continue to liaise with all the site stakeholders, including the Thames Valley Harriers, to just reassure that any of these improvements won't impinge on the activities of the athletics club or any of the other site users that we know use the Linford Christie Stadium.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this? Fine. Okay, good. Happy for committee to note. Can we I feel like I'm doing a bingo caller. Number 8, please.
Thanks again, Chair. So this is an update on the low-level wooden fencing that we're seeking to construct around the Braybrick equipment that we have on that side of the Scrubs. So as we know, we have the older playground. We have the newer playground that was opened by the children of Old Oak Primary School recently. And we have the outdoor gym area. All 3 areas could be identified as areas that we could fence off potentially. And you know, that fencing is partly to obviously limit access, partly to protect dogs from getting into those spaces, and to protect the users as well. So I'm going through a consultation process at the moment to speak to the kids and the parents of the primary school to see if they would prefer just the new playground to be fenced off, or the new playground and the old playground as one big area, or all 3 to be separate kind of fenced off areas, depending on what they prefer. As you know, that side of the Scrubs is used a lot by families and children. So we're hoping that consultation will run up until the end of the school term, and I will liaise with committee members outside of committee as well to generate those preferences. We do have a set of quotes for individual areas of fencing, those 3 kind of parcels of fencing that we could impress, but I will come back in September with recommendations for how to proceed.
Thank you very much, Osama. Thank you. I think it is really good that we're consulting to co-produce a solution with children and families from the Oak. Faye.
Is it just the primary school that's being consulted, or is it other users?
So primary school users for the playgrounds primarily, and also the users of the gym as well, for potentially fencing that area off as well, but also welcoming any feedback from any community members who tend to use that part of the Scrubs and have any particular views as well. So yeah, if you know of any residents who've got particular views about that, please just send them my email address and ask them to get in touch.
Is there a sign up at the playground with like a way for people to contact and feedback?
There were some laminated signs there. I need to check if they're still there. If they're not, then I will put some new ones up and make sure that they are either slightly higher so they don't get ripped off, but also that anything that we have on site is also reflected onto the LVHF consultation website as well.
But that's, I think we're kind of very, very keen to speak to the users of the play area and kind of see what's going to work best for them. Kind of being very mindful of that. Stephen.
Yes, I failed to introduce myself twice. So Stephen Whaley-Cohen from the Friends of the Scrubs, and quite now a long-standing cooperative member of this committee. I hope you will consult other users of that area. Obviously, the children and their parents are the most important, but if it was decided, for example, to make one big enclosure, that's quite a big area blocked off for other users, whereas if it was 3 smaller areas, there's still the ability for people to pass through without interfering with the use of the 3 areas.
Yeah, so there is a footpath, a sort of informal footpath that cuts through. So we're just conscious that we don't want to limit access for anyone who wants to sort of walk all the way around the Scrubs. But we do need to be led by the preferences of the users.
That's it, because I think there are lots of places where one can walk dogs in a route, but having an area where children and families can go, and particularly if they don't want to be around dogs, which is also very valid.
I wasn't even just thinking of people with dogs, Chair, but just people walking.
Well, because I think that's one of the big differences of not having dogs in the play area. But I mean, if you're walking, it's not too much further to kind of walk around it, because that's what there is in Ravenscourt Park, for example, or Bishop's Park or something, where there's a play area that is fenced off. But just having, but you know, the Scrubs are so big, there is a place for everyone to use it, and just making sure that those who want to be in a place where they can feel kind of closed in by the family and can see each other clearly as well across the play area. I think there's some of the comments we've had back, so we just want to make sure that those are reflected as well. But thank you very much, that is noted. Councillor Stanton is going to review the manager's report and let you know whether he approves or not. So I think let's just let's go to 9, 10 and 12, and then we'll come back to 6, 7 and 11.
Thanks again, Chair. So number 9 is concerns the traffic management system on Woodman's Mews that I had alluded to earlier while responding to Raoul and Ahmed. So we know that this is something that has been sort of a long time coming. Specifically, the residents of Woodman's Mews have been quite vocal about wanting that to come into effect. And so we had commissioned that system to be installed. The infrastructure itself is there, it's kind of ready to go, but we need to figure out the best way to get a power supply to the bollards. And so previously they were tapped into a system which kind of ran from Woodman's Mews, but that's not really congruent with the kind of spec of bollards that we've got now. So essentially we need to work with UK Power Networks in order to do some trenching and some ducting in order to ensure that the 100 amp power supply that it requires is established. We can't just tap into the street lighting network as well, as we don't have the right connections. And so we're hoping that we're going to commission that work within the next 2 to 3 weeks with UK Power Networks. As mentioned, we're going to keep the residents informed at every stage of these works because they're very much affected by this. And a subsequent report on that will be coming to the September committee, hopefully just to mention that it's all complete and we're good to go and we're managing that access. But I will keep the committee informed of as and when we have those works completed and kind of on schedule.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it being operational. Any questions on this? Fine, thank you. Oh, okay, brilliant. Stanton's back. So Councillor Stanton's back. So we're going to go to 6, 7 and 11, which we might do at pace.
Yes, Chair. Steve Hollingworth, AD Leisure, Sport and Culture. I'm doing 6 and 7. So 6 is the trust manager post. So this post was established last year as a 2-year fixed term contract. So members of the trust could assess the added value the post brings of having your own individual officer specifically for the trust. To look, see how well it went in terms of community engagement and consultation, product delivery, policy, etc. Given that the amount of work we've got through over the last 12 months and the amount of work we've got ongoing and going forward, it was an opportunity to ask the committee whether they wish to now confirm this post as a permanent position going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. I am incredibly supportive of this. Sam, I think you've been absolutely brilliant. And whilst it's not about you, it's about the post, I think you have added huge value to it. So I would very much approve. And thank you for all the work that you've done.
Can I second that also? Thank you.
Brilliant.
And while I don't have a vote, I would like to support that. It's been very beneficial to the trust and also to the gradual to recognition that Wormwood Scrubs Charitable Trust is an independent entity of which the borough is obviously the trustee and in fact officers do all the work, but it's very valuable to have its own manager in maintaining its independent status.
Brilliant. All right, lovely, approved. Thank you very much. Delighted we're going to be around longer. Right, number 7, Steve.
Yes, Chair. This is the grounds maintenance contract. So the grounds maintenance contract, as Arma has already outlined, was let in 3 lots. So the Scrubs have their own contract, housing have their own contract, and parks and highways and cemeteries have their own contract. When we tendered this work, we tendered it at a nil inflation contract for 5 years, and then the contract fee would be renegotiated after 5 years for the following 5 years, if indeed we wanted to let it for a further 5 years. Saying that, it has been a lot of unforeseen financial challenge in terms of inflation increases since the contract started. And obviously, all contractors who bid made an estimate of inflation and built it into their contract price. Because of the unforeseen inflation, ID Verdi approached the council to say, we are struggling and we want to talk to you about inflation for this coming year as a one-off. We've looked at that, we've looked at their figures, we've seen what they estimated, and agreed certainly for housing and the wider council area a one-off year inflation increase for 23-24 of 3.51%. After long and protracted negotiation. We think that will maintain standards across the borough, and obviously we do not want to increase that for the following years until the end of the contract. So following those negotiations, we're asking whether the trust would also wish to follow suit and offer this 1 year 3.51% due to the unforeseen inflationary pressures.
Thank you, Steve. I'm happy to approve this. It is well below the actual level of inflation, and I assume if it's happening corporately elsewhere, if we do not do the same, there may be a loss of standards or standards dropping for lot 3. I don't know if anyone else has any other views on that, but I'm happy to approve.
No, I would, if I say reluctantly, but understandably approve.
Thank you. All right, I think that's approved. Right, and then final approval item, Carmen, I'm going to come all the way over to you for auditor approval, please.
Actually, that's going to be me. So I'm Nick. That's all right, don't worry. Thanks, Chair. I'm Nick Falcone. I'm the senior accountant in corporate finance. So this item, we're asking the committee to approve the appointment of MHA McIntyre Hudson as the external auditor for the Trust's 2022-23 accounts, as well as its fee. So MHA have been the auditors for the Trust since the 1920 financial year, and they've worked well with myself and other council officers in previous years when conducting the audit. So their fee for 2022-23 is £10,900, which is a slight increase on the 21-22 audit fee of £9,950. But we feel this is a justifiable increase because the audit fee previously has been fixed for a number of years. Even going back to 2017-18, it was only 9,900. So and also with inflation recently, and the fact that auditors are also required to do more than they have been in the past. Yeah, we feel it's justifiable increase. A waiver has already been approved as well by the council's head of procurement relating to this contract award, which means we didn't have to ask for quotes from other potential auditors. The audit is planned to take place during kind of autumn winter 2023, but yeah, the start date will depend on auditors' availability. So yes, please let me know if there's any questions on that, but hopefully the committee will approve that. the appointment of the external auditor as well as the fee. Thanks.
Any questions on this?
No, nothing from me, Chair. I'd be happy to approve on the basis of just.
Fine. Thank you. I'm also happy to approve. So let's approve the Chair's auditors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just say, if that's the last item that needs needs approval, do you mind? I'm going to turn the camera off. I'll still be around, but I won't necessarily come back on with the camera.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you for attending for as long as you have. Thank you.
Right, my pleasure. Thank you.
And if you've got any other questions, please just send them through.
I will. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Could I remind everyone to go on mute if you are not speaking? Right. Okay. What are we going to now? What have we not done? So we have done everything other than 10 and 12.
Chair, I think there's 10 is the next one, is the let report.
10 and 12, so brilliant. Well, let's go to the let report. Thank you. Rel, Ahmed, are either of you giving this report?
Yeah, good evening. I will try to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, that's fine. Would you mind popping your camera on as well?
So I'm having some problem. It looks like problems.
Fine.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. We can't see you.
Oh, okay. Just a second.
Perfect. Great. Now we can see and hear you. Lovely.
Sorry, I got audio problems here with the computer. Let me see if it works now.
That's fine. We can still hear you. That's fine. We can still hear you.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Although we have lost the screen share. Could maybe someone else put the report up? Oh, no.
I'm not sure you can hear me again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I won't be taking too long. It's a fresh report for this quarter law enforcement team. We got two dedicated ward officers. One is Raul, is on this call today, and the opposite shift is Magda. And we got the second senior who replaced Neil Morrison, is Alfie Carrigan. He's also working on the opposite shift, so he worked on early shift today, and we are today on the late shift. So we are in total 72 officers. We are working from different bases, one in Montstraight to the south, central, and in White City area. We got two night teams as well. They cover the borough-wide service. So what's your main objective? To support the council's vision to be the best council and deliver continuous improvement of our residents, to be the cleanest and safest borough, to work in partnership with council services, resident partners, and external agencies to develop a coordinated approach to solving issues and increasing resident satisfaction, and support the police and other partners to protect residents from antisocial behavior and crime, and tackling persistent issues, particularly known hotspots in the borough. We have done lots of work on Wormwood Scrubs from 27th of February to 12th of June. The breakdown is as follows. We have done lots of weapon sweeps, and on two occasions we found one knife towards Braybrook Street. That was during the night when we had a complaint coming from one of the committee members, trustees Faye Thomas, and we officer attended, and they noticed that a group of teenagers, they were occupying one of the benches and they are enjoying melons. So when they saw the officers, they made off, and officers recovered a kitchen knife from there. And on another occasion, the officer found one garden shears and we removed it. We have done lots of ASP patrol through the wooded area, Corps 1, 2, 3, Central, and at the back where HS2, Camp 1, Camp 2 used to be, and also around the gym area. And we dispersed 2 individuals from the gym area who were actually taking drugs. We have done lots of work around the professional dog walkers on the Wormwood Scrubs. There is 2 car parks. One is towards Scrubsland, and the second one is at the back of Hammersmith Hospital, and that's where we actually engage more the dog walkers. And also when we go on the field, we engage with them as well. We try to talk, engage, educate them as much as possible, but there are a few, they do not want to engage with us. They do not want to take any education or any kind of engagement or any talk. They just disappear. We have recorded them. We have taken the right numbers of them. So once the PSPO will, so we will start enforcing. Those are the one we will be looking for. Just to aid that one, we have agreed with the SNT that we will be doing one operation with their support when we actually be starting enforcing on the dogs PSPO. We are encouraging them to book for their licenses through the sports booking with the council. Some of them, they have the license, and some of them, they had the license, but they did not renew it. So that will be part of the enforcement what we'll be starting, but we are educating them as we go. We have done several, we've got 10s, we 101 engagement with residents, with the dog walkers, with the joggers, with the park users, and just giving them wider information on the let and also how to be staying safe on the Wormwood Scrubs. We have investigated 5 incidents of fly tipping on Wormwood Scrubs, car patrols within the wooded area, miscellaneous dumps, litter areas. I think within the wooded area with the Corps 1 and 2, 3, which is more thick forest area. So that's where we find that it's more hiding place. We found a few bits and pieces there. There was one fly tipping incident we are currently investigating. It's a small van load dumped by unknown vehicle at the moment, and we are looking into it with more details to see if we can track down on the register keeper. High visibility patrol, we have done about 232 across the Wormwood Scrubs, the gym area, all the Corps nature area, and around the Braybrook Street as well. Illegal encampments, we had 3 different occasions in March, April, and May. All 3 occasions we engaged with them and we served section 77 on them just to make sure that they are living within the time bracket we have given them. In that, on the first occasion, they actually came through the Scrub side and they occupied. No, I think all 3 occasions they came through from the hospital side, and on the first occasion they broke the gate and they gone into the council car park as well. On the second one they did the same, and one of the occasion they stayed on the Hammersmith Hospital car park. On all 3 occasions we did the welfare check with the police support, and we made sure no one on site was in danger or needed any further help. I know there were 1 or 2 occasions when the occupants, they were involved in other activities which police dealt with. One of the examples I can give you, they stole 1 car and that was recovered later by the police. We have identified and removed 1 motorbike from the Wormwood Scrubs through the ID Verdi. We have been doing the locking duties, yellow gates, and we're checking which is on the Scrubs lane, and other one is on Artillery Lane where the restricted barrier is from where the caravan cannot enter. They always come through the hospital side because there is no restriction at this moment. We have dealt with 1 rough sleeper, and he didn't need support, and he was seen previously as well on Wormwood Scrubs. And on this occasion, I served him a community protection notice, asking him not to return on Wormwood Scrubs or anywhere in Hammersmith Fulham Council. There were a few scattered or individual small tents occupying one of the wooded areas, and there were 3 abandoned tents. We got it removed ourselves, and there was one we asked them to leave, and they complied with. In total, we have done 508 inspections altogether, and that equates to 4.5 inspections per day. The rest is just we work collaboratively with the police. We work with the professional dog walkers, and we got PSPO, which is at the moment is all there. We're just waiting for the signage to be put on display, and we are at the moment 4 to 6 weeks. We are engaging, educating. Once we go and apply the law correctly and appropriately, we'll be seeing some FPNs coming, fixed penalty notices on, more likely on the professional dog walkers. These are just a few examples we have discussed in the stats, and I just want to share one thing. There was one allegation of 16-year-old boy that he was sexually assaulted. Officers were on the Wormwood Scrubs on that day, and police officers, they were linking up with our officers, and we helped them to identify 2 individuals who were allegedly assaulted this male, young male. But we found out later through our different channels that actually he was not assaulted. It was more of some hand signals and other bits and pieces, which he thought it was quite offensive. There was one child gone missing, Wormwood Scrubs, and officers were on the Scrubs, and the parent's mother was quite distressed, and we helped the mother to find the child, who actually was in one of the play area near the pitches area. There was one male in the dog with the dog on in one of the children their play area, which is toward the gym side, and we asked him to leave. He was not aware of that, and he immediately left the area. I talked about other illegal time store sleepers. There were 2 incidents there where officers, they were on the beat, and in one of the COPs, which is COP 1, just outside, there was a very small fire set by one individual. We asked him to put it out, which he did. And however, we did extensive, on a different day, we did extensive inspection of the wooded area, and in COPS 2, we found that somebody actually had a kind of, not saying barbecue, it's more of a setting fire there, and it looks like it was a few hours there. The small little smoke coming out from there, we tried to stub it out with soil, with rainwater, and with outfit, and I think boots, it helped, and we asked ID body to make sure everything is clear from there. Rest all as same as previous. We do safeguarding the council assets, local parks, and just being there on the green. Just make sure that people can see us and approach us, and if there are issues, wider issues, sometimes they are not covered in the telephone calls or on the emails, so we can pick face to face. How to contact a law enforcement team? We got dedicated ward inbox, email address, which is Old Oak College Park, and it comes part of the North Wards. And myself and Alfie Carrigan, we are 2 seniors. If somebody wants a walkabout with us, we are more than happy to accommodate, and we just need some time so we can make sure who is working on the shift can accommodate that. We got one dedicated line. It is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It's 0208 753 1100, and it's option 3 and then option 1. And anyone can send us an email to our central inbox as well, which is lat.hf@lbhf.gov.uk. And we got here our Teams Let Teams Central web page, which is on the Hammersmith Fulham Council website, and that will take you all on dedicated web page. That's it from us.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for that very comprehensive report of all the activity that the LET has been up to. It's brilliant that you're so visible and absolutely kind of stepping in, but it's a bit of a lack of people. Thank you so much for all the work that you and the team are doing. Are there any questions on this, Stephen? Stephen and then Faye.
Yes, there's a great deal of uncertainty and clarity about the PSPO. On all the websites, it's still called draft, so it's not clear whether it's in place or not yet in place. It's drafted in such a way that people have to keep referring back and forward to different places, can't see what they're actually supposed to do, so that some people think they've got to have their dogs on leads everywhere on the scrubs. It's not clear to them where they have to have their dogs on leads, or whether that is at all times or only, for example, when a forest school is actually taking place, which is pretty rare. And it needs to be set out in the signage that you're going to put out really clearly and simply, or people simply won't understand it. I think that's really important, that it's clear and simple. And that this committee has never discussed forest schools as to whether they should happen. They do occasionally happen with a very good local charity, but it's very occasional. And I think it's usually in the central copse. And when it's there, it's quite reasonable that dogs should have to be on leads, but that's not a reason for them to have to be on leads 365 days a year in such an area. The same is true with the wildlife sites, and they need identifying. We can't just call them wildlife areas. They have to be identified in local nature reserve and shown clearly on a map. And again, is it always, or is it only bird nesting season? It's not clear. Equally, with the license for professional dog walkers, those relate to individuals or to companies? So can a company have a dozen dog walkers, each with 4 dogs, not necessarily together, of course, maybe separately? Or does each walker need a license, which I think it should be, because then they can be properly contacted and controlled and so on and so on. And so if it is now in place, it doesn't say so on anybody's website, and there's a considerable lack of clarity, which does concern us. I think that's all.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Faye?
Hi, I'm not sure if this is a question for the law enforcement team or the trust generally. There was an item which was missing from the report, which is the antisocial behaviour that we're experiencing at the end of Braybrook Street since the installation of the new picnic benches, which I've sent a formal complaint about. But all of my neighbours on Braybrook Street are being subject to quite considerable noise disturbance every single weekend since the picnic area was created there and since the warm weather started. So we're quite keen for a swift resolution. I've spoken to the law enforcement team in person, and they were very helpful, and also agree that the benches need to be moved to a more appropriate area away from residents' houses. So I just wondered if there was an update on that, basically.
Osama?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Faye, for bringing it to our attention. Yeah, it really should have been included in the Let update, as this has been happening for concurrent weekends, maybe 3 or 4 weekends now in a row. So on the note of taking or relocating the benches, so I've been looking into the cost of doing so, as they are very much welded into the ground, shall we say. They're very much a part of the installation. When I say part of the installation, when we were giving the grant funding by the OPDC, it was specifically to create access and to improve accessibility for those with buggies or those with different abilities. And so by kind of relocating the benches, we're not necessarily undercutting the kind of specification of the grant, but we do have to just be careful about, if we've said that we're going to spend the money in a certain way, that we actually do it that we do it that way, by way of our method statement and by way of our intended outcomes as well. So I've looked into the cost. It's quite a considerable cost, but we also just need to think about how it affects accessibility for the rest of the usership of the scrubs. And so that's a discussion that I'm having with various different users all the time. We do just have to be very wary as well that when we did this consultation into the barriers for participation onto the scrubs that was undertaken by the LDT last year, one of the big priorities that they highlighted for us was accessibility. And so having picnic benches at accessible footpaths is a really key element to that. And so, you know, I think if we were to kind of go through the enforcement route first, and really make sure that we're deterring people from being there in the first instance, make sure that we are issuing fixed penalty notices for those who are repeat offenders, and also engaging with the Met Police. So the Met Police have more power and more instance to be able to come onto the scrubs and do something quickly. The Let obviously work in shifts, so it can be a little bit kind of, the logistics don't work necessarily through the time that you make a complaint versus how quickly it can be responded to. That's not to undercut the efforts that Ahmed and his team put on the scrubs, because they're a fantastic presence. So I think we'll monitor the situation over the coming weeks. Obviously, it's incredibly irritating for the residents, yourself as well, being a mother, like, it's, you know, losing that sleep and knowing that that's potentially going to be there is something which is can really kind of affect your health. And so I'm very much aware of that, and we are working, as I said, with the Met Police and the Let to ensure that we monitor the situation. We do issue those fines, and we use that as the kind of main method of enforcement first. And then if you really need to spend the money, which is a very considerable amount of money, then we will relocate the benches to another location. So hopefully that's a sufficient response.
No, I have to say that is not a sufficient response, and I'm not happy. I'm not at all happy with the way that that's being handled. Residents were never consulted about having a picnic area put on our doorsteps, and I'm not saying I'm not disputing at all that we should have accessibility benches on the scrubs, and the ones at the Braywick Street playground area are great. The logical location for a picnic area would be by the hospital, so that people who are using the hospital can go onto the scrubs and have lunches there. To placing one at the end of Braywick Street in a location which has limited visibility, is wide, densely wooded area, feels unsafe at minimum to sit on by yourself, and is about 20 meters from residents' houses, and is currently being used by people partying until 6 a.m. in the morning. Saying that you're going to monitor the situation simply isn't good enough. I'm sorry, but we had the Metropolitan Police out, we had the law enforcement teams out. Nobody did anything. Nobody moved it away. I had my next door neighbours were talking about going over there and threatening people. It's actually it's impacting people quite seriously, especially in the heat wave. I think monitoring the situation when fines aren't doing anything. We had like 2 police vans dealing with it, multiple officers, and they went over, talked to them, said, turn the music off. They turned the music off, the police drove off, and they turned the music back on. And I realized that there's a lot of bureaucracy that needs to happen in order for things to be done, but we were never consulted, and it is causing significant impact on the well-being of not just myself, but my neighbours on Braywick Street who don't necessarily know who to contact or who to complain to. But I've flagged it, and no, I'm sorry, monitoring it is not good enough. There needs to be a better resolution than this.
Okay, yeah, I'd fully take that on board, and I feel your frustration. You know, if I lived at that part of the scrubs, I'd be incredibly irritated as well. So I'll take this up with my seniors. I'll have discussions with Steve and with Simon Ingood, and I'll get back to you at some point this week.
If you can include me, I'd be very grateful, because I can tell you that all the trustees feel that this is a problem that we need to resolve. Thanks, Osama.
Cool.
You're on silent, Chair. You're on.
Thank you. I will also say the police are absolutely the right port of call here. I think we've found that because the Let are much more visible than the Met are, often the Let are now becoming the first point of call when there's ASB. And whilst the Let do a brilliant job of supporting the Metropolitan Police, it should be, in an emergency and something urgent, it should always be the police that you go to first. And just because they're busy does not mean that they should not be turning out. So
we did actually have officers attending. I said two massive police vans with multiple officers attended, spoke to people. And because there's no obvious crime being committed aside from people playing music and getting drunk at 5 o'clock in the morning, they didn't do anything. So
Yeah, sorry, if I could just finish that point. They do come once they're asked a lot, but I do know that for other events they haven't turned out because they've said that they're too busy. So there's been, I think on that particular instance they did come, but quite a bit later. But it sounds like there have been several other instances where they haven't turned up. And I think, again, it leads to frustration with residents who see the Let there, and the Let, again, do great job, but cannot issue fines, cannot arrest people. They can act as a deterrent. And so I think we just need to be very, very clear on that messaging of the Met should be turning out to deal with ASB. And if they're not, the Let are quite limited in what they can do. But I think, again, just trying to pressure the Met to turn out whenever they can. The point about the benches, we'll take that away and see what we can do there. But it should really be the Met as the first point of call whenever anything is happening. Right, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the Let paper? Fine, thank you. Okay, all right. Can we go to accounts, please? Carmen or Nick, is this?
Yes, this chair, it's me. So yes, so the finances show that there's a 38,000 difference compared to budget. The budget was set at 329,465 income to net income. So the 38,000 is a net of 45,000 over additional spend and 21,000 additional income. And that 21,000 comes from the interest, which has been increased because obviously the interest rates have recently improved. And then there's a few items that are not budgeted, but most of them have been mentioned in the report earlier. So those sums include the dog exercise area for 20,000, bicycle racks 15,000, and 10,000 for the pony centre. So this is the forecast to the end of the year. We still got costs estimated for additional ad hoc repairs, and obviously they're not spent yet, but this forecast is to the end of the financial year. So the actual spend to date is a lot less than this, but this is what we're forecasting to the end of financial year. The sums to be, the net sums to be credited from 22-23 are yet to be audited, and but I've noted those in the report, but subject to audit, those are the correct figures. So it's basically just 38,000 different to budget at the moment, Chair. So I'm not quite sure whether anyone's got any questions, so I can focus on those.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the budget? No. Thank you very much, Carmen. I don't have any questions on this. But thank you for putting it together, and thank you for also putting the breakdown of the parking charges. I'm not sure that was you or Nick, but thank you for those as well.
Thank you.
Fine. Okay, lovely, thank you. Right, okay, I think having zigzagged all over the agenda, we have come to the end of it. I don't think I missed anything out from the various items. So I'm going to note the date of the future meetings. So that's the 6th of September, the 12th of December, and the 6th of March. And unless there is any AOB, Stephen?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I wanted to ask, I think it's probably Osama, whether we've been able to progress the application to HS2 for financial support for the playground fencing. And I've got two other items, but shall we do them one at a time?
I'm muted. They all to Osama. Not sure. Osama, do you want to answer that one first? We'll come back for the others.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Chair. So in regards to the HS2 Community Environment Fund, which we received to construct the new playground on Braybrooke Street, initially we had an idea to approach them again in order to revamp the dog exercise area. And so once we got back in touch with HS2, they notified us that because we had been successful in the previous round of funding for the playground, we didn't have priority, so to speak, in this financial year. And so, you know, there are various different applications that go in. We, as a trust, need our own bank account in order to receive funds from HS2 independently of the council, which is quite an important point. And so if the trust would like to erect anything through HS2's grant funding pot, that application needs to come through the council. And you know, the playground that we actually had installed at Braybrooke Street, that initially the application had to come back to the trust, and we were asked to actually apply through the council rather than through the trust. And that's because for various different things, part of which we didn't have our own bank account, which is one of the basic criteria of that fund. And so once we went through the council in order to submit that application, it was successful. The trust match funded the officer cost, and we were able to construct the new playground. Given the fact that we're unable to submit applications this year again through the council, that being because the council have already applied for quite a significant amount of funding for a different project, which is taking place elsewhere in the borough, the trust is unable to apply for that fund again this financial year. That doesn't preclude us from being able to do that in the future. And HS2 are aware of the fact that we have other schemes that and community projects that we're keen to apply for, Scrubs Watch being one of those. And I did prompt them that the Friends would be keen to apply for Scrubs Watch, to which they responded that they would welcome an application this financial year if the Friends thought that was expedient. In terms of the sequencing, we've got the £9,000 secured already until January of 2024. So really it's the calendar year next year, 2024, which would be the best time to, or in the lead up to that, to apply for that HS2 Community Environment Fund for Scrubs Watch. But insofar as the dog exercise area, that is a scheme that either we can look for other grant funding for, which the trust can match fund, or we can use trust funds in order to support that project.
That's very helpful, Chair. I know we've never needed our own bank account because everything's come through the council own bank accounts. But if it's meaning that we can't apply for money that's there, surely we should have our own bank account.
That is currently being explored as we, I believe I've got an update meeting with Nick Anderson on Friday.
Yes, I can confirm that we are progressing that, and we had a meeting with Treasury actually end of last week to discuss, just to check from their side whether there's any potential things we need to be aware of. So they're due to come back this week. So, you know, I'll make sure we have an update before our meeting on Friday regarding that. So it's progressing. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My next question relates to the money allocated for Thames Valley Harriers Clubhouse and other works on Linford Christie Stadium, which Steve Hollingworth was going to look into. And I just wondered if it was yet ready to have an update or whether that was waiting till the next meeting.
Steve?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we are trying to identify capital funding from the council, and then once we've done that, we will have an update at the next meeting to see whether we need funding from the trust also to resolve issues with the track, I think, predominantly. In terms of Thames Valley Harriers, they are still considering their position on whether they want to develop their clubhouse or not, as the case may be. So they haven't used this yet, but we will have an update at the next meeting on both of those items.
Thank you again, Chair. And finally, the Friends would like to tell everyone on this meeting, listening as well as present, that we are having our second annual dog show, for which we've received our license, on the last Sunday in July, the 30th, in the same location, which is on the just in front of Linford Christie Stadium. And we hope you'll all come and enjoy the day.
Thank you very much. That was a lovely event last year, so looking forward to it. Thank you. Brilliant. All right, well, if there is no further business, I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for attending tonight. Hope you have a good rest of the evening and see you soon. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks very much.